Hi, welcome back or welcome to UXUI Advocate. Hi, hello. If we've never met before, my name is Kristen. I am going to talk about content from week 11 and 12. Once again, have my trusty dusty sticky note with my notes on it. And week 11 and 12 were pretty short content weeks, so I thought I'd condense them together. So yes, let's get started. Once again, I've got my same shirt on because the last two videos are all going to be filmed on the same night. So here we go, week 11 and 12 content. So we're going to focus on responsive web design, the different types of navigation bars specifically, like that particular element within a web page. We're also going to talk about mainly like future related content within the UX/UI field, what innovation looks like, how we are constantly evolving, and the importance of innovation within this industry, as well as animation, and then a little bit about smartwatches and integrating voice and sound into our prototypes. So it was really interesting the last 2 weeks. Okay, so responsive web design. I know that I'm going to butcher it up, and I still don't quite understand what it means. Like, I know what it kind of looks like. So responsive web design, it is the idea that the content that we have on one page is shifted and altered to be responsive, allow the user to interact with it on multiple different devices. So when you open up go back to Facebook, if you open up Facebook, actually, if you open up, let's say, the Times, New York Times, they have a web page where you can look up lots of different articles. But you can also look up the New York Times directly from like Google on your phone. But of course, the content is going to look a little different because your desktop device is a lot bigger. The screen size is a lot bigger than your phone, like your phone screen. And so as designers, it's important for us to kind of figure out what the interface is going to look like on a desktop versus a mobile device, or even something in the middle like a tablet, because it's going to look so different. So for example, you go to the New York Times and you will see like 5 sets of articles that they're promoting or having users to read all in one row. But on a mobile device, you wouldn't see 5 elements all within one row because it would take up too much space, because you don't have that space on a mobile device versus a desktop. So responsive web design focuses on not just thinking about what your desktop or what your user interface is going to look like on one device, but understanding how your interface is going to change and be manipulated, and how you design that manipulative interface across different devices. So there's certain kind of best practices to use when you're designing your interface and when you're taking into consideration responsive web design. It's important to not just think about what your desktop users are going to be looking at, but also what your mobile device users are going to be looking at and what your tablet users are going to be looking at, because it's going to look all a lot different. So that's been the main focus of the last 2 weeks, week 11 and week 12. So that's responsive web design. I really hope I didn't butcher that too much, but that was my interpretation of what that was. So that's that. Next, we have different types of navigation bars. I had no clue. There are so many types of navigation bars out there, and I've interacted with, I feel like, all of them, but I've never realized they had different names and they're designed with intentional purposes. So like, for example, traditionally you'll go to a web page and you'll have a nav bar just like up at the top, and usually you hover over a particular primary tab and you have a drop-down menu, which is one way to do a nav bar. Perfectly fine. Other websites, you'll have a way to like click on a primary category within your nav bar, and you'll have the full menu pull up the whole entire screen. So it'll have, like, you'll hover over, and the content within that particular, the subcategories within that particular primary category will filter throughout the whole entire page. So the whole page will be taken up by the menu. And then you have other types of nav bars, specifically mobile, for example. Sometimes you have like a left side navigation bar with icons that tell the user what like menu category they're going to be clicking on before they even actually click on it. So that kind of cuts down on the time that it takes the user to engage in a particular type or particular section of your website. It reduces the amount of clicks that they have to go through, which helps them, encourages them to stay on your website or your application is a little bit longer. And it makes the experience more enjoyable for the user. For navigation, it's a whole world out there, so it's interesting. Learn about that. And then we also talked about like the future of UX UI and innovation, what interfaces are kind of looking like. Like interface doesn't just mean desktop, mobile, tablet. Interfaces can also be, I tried to say her name earlier and she like got all excited. So there's like voice interaction interfaces, there's like Alexa, there's augmented reality, virtual reality, all these different types of platforms that a user will interact with, like a user and technology will interact with. Oh my gosh, there's different platforms that a user will interact with technology on. And it's important to understand that UI doesn't just pertain to a physical device that we're traditionally used to, like a computer screen or a phone. There's so many other things that UI can be displayed on, and it's really interesting some of the things that people are coming up with, like virtual reality and Meta and their little goggles, the Oculus goggles, and being able to work in a virtual realm. Like that concept alone is so unique and different and probably a little too early for its time, but really, really interesting ideas that people are coming up with every single day regarding UX UI. So that's my little spiel there for innovation and the future of UX UI. And then we kind of took a pivot to talk about animation. It goes a little bit, I kind of talked about interaction design, and animation kind of blends in with interaction design. So I won't go into deep detail on animation, but it's pretty straightforward animation. And then we took a pivot again into smartwatches, designing the UI for smartwatches, which was kind of random because we're not going to do any type of project, any type of portfolio assignment for watch interfaces. So it was interesting. It was a weird kind of day. We did that. And then the last thing we talked about was integrating voice into our prototypes. So we use lots of different software within the UX UI field, but the two that we've been focusing on primarily for developing prototypes within our certificate program is Figma and Adobe XD. I have decided not to purchase Adobe XD because I'm just really cheap. So I use Figma. My professor really likes Figma, so we use Figma. But in Figma, you can't integrate voice like you can in Adobe XD. So during this one class, we developed watch interfaces, but then we also integrated voice commands, and we told the program what we wanted the program to listen to and what we wanted the program to do once that command was stated. And then of course like a little Siri voice popped out of our little watch interface prototype. It is actually really cool to see the interaction and the animation involved in integrating voice into our prototype. It was really cool. I still don't think I would purchase Adobe XD for that feature alone, but they now own Figma, so who knows what we're going to have to do in the next couple years. But that was really interesting to kind of play around that with class. So I think that is all for week 11 and 12. That means I'm finally at the halfway mark of my UX/UI certification. This certificate program. I have 12 more weeks left, and y'all, it's really hard. Nobody really wants to be, like, I think everybody's just really tired and burnt out, and we still have 12 more weeks left. But at this point, I still really like it, which is a positive sign. I can see myself doing this long term. I've been building up my portfolio, finally found a website platform that I actually want to use to start putting my projects onto it. So I'm building that website platform, slowly finishing this personal project for my government redesign website. And yeah, been applying to jobs, nothing but ghosting or rejections, but that's okay because that's part of the process, I'm told. But yeah, that is good. Once again, thank you so much for listening, and I appreciate just being able to do this, even if this is just the journey for me to reflect on in a year or two when hopefully I have a UXUI job and I can just be like, wow, she didn't know anything, but now she does. I'm glad that I'm sticking to something. So 12 more weeks. Wish me luck. In the meantime, I'll see y'all next week. Bye.